Hi, everybody. It's Honest John again. Priests, ministers, preachers, they love to talk about repentance, atonement, the resolve to sin no more. And their flocks listen and pray and yell, Hallelujah. But sooner or later, a scandal erupts. Turns out that the preacher has been molesting children, or is a regular customer of prostitutes, or is having an affair with one of his parishioners, or is stealing money from the donations, or who knows what else. And then they get caught, and they ask for forgiveness and express repentance, and resolve to sin no more. But think about this. None of them ever repented until they got caught. For years, they stood up in that pulpit and spoke to the congregation about their sins. Surely the sins that they were committing must have crossed their minds. When they were talking about adultery and they looked down into the congregation and saw the husband of the woman they were cheating with, their adulterous behavior must have crossed their mind. When they talked about theft, surely it must have crossed their minds that they were also committing that sin. But did they stop, overcome with guilt, and confess their sins to their flock? No. And as for resolving to sin no more, obviously none of them ever stopped until they got caught. I don't trust that type of repentance. The Catholic Church had hundreds, thousands of opportunities to come clean and stop the abuse of children, and they never did. Their cover-up extended from the local parish priests to the bishops right into the Vatican. And no one broke ranks. They all covered it up, including the current Pope. And yet, people are still going to the Catholic churches and giving them money. If the Ford Motor Company, if its employees were molesting children, and the owner and the CEOs were covering it up, when it came out, nobody would ever buy a Ford again. But in these churches, whether it's Catholic, Protestant, Jewish, whatever, in these churches, when those scandal breaks, they replace the preacher, and people go back and they give their tithes. You can Google hundreds of examples of priests, ministers, and preachers of every ilk covering every church who have been caught up in scandals. Not one of them ever came forward on their own. None of them stopped on their own. None of them ever repented until they got caught. And yet still people are going to those churches and giving their hard-earned money to these dickheads. Now, if you choose to believe in God, that's your decision. And I'm not going to argue about it. But that guy up in the pulpit who claims to be God's representative is just a flawed human being like everybody else. If you believe in him, you're a fool. And if you give him your money, you're a fucking idiot. Thanks for listening.